Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar with AutoEntry, which is all about implementing Making Tax Digital for income tax. Thank you so much for joining us. Let us know where you're joining from, what you've got planned on this sunny day. If you're trying to balance childcare over Easter holidays with attending webinars and running your business, we'd love to know. So we're really excited that we're joined today with Sean Smith from AutoEntry, who's going to be talking to us. Just to let you know, we're recording this session, so you will receive a copy of this recording as well as the slide deck as well, so you don't need to worry about taking lots of notes. We'll make sure you've got all of the information you need afterwards. So I think at this point, Sean, would you like to introduce yourself? Let us know who you are, where you're from, what you're doing, and then it's all over to you.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. So we're going to be covering Making Tax Digital. Sorry, my nose is a little blocked today. I sound very nasally. With bookkeepers in mind, right? So a little bit about me. So I'm Sean Smith, and I work at Sage, and I cover AutoEntry as well. I'm the accountant evangelist, which is a fairly jazzy job title, but essentially it means I sit in the product team and I spend as much time as I can with accountants and bookkeepers, and then feeding what the conversations that I'm having and the issues that they face, feeding that into the product team so that the product team can understand what they need to build and what to put on the roadmap to kind of best serve our client base. And vice versa. So when we're building roadmaps, I take those out as well and show people, and we get sort of, you're going in the right direction, or this is the wrong thing, that kind of idea. So that's the role I do here. I was an accountant previously, but not for very long. So I did a degree in it, and then I was in practice for a couple of years. And I've worked for various software companies since then. But enough about me. Because we're not here to learn about me. We're here to listen and learn about making tax digital. So in terms of what we're covering today, then we'll go over the sort of rules and regulations, make sure everyone's kind of aware of the kind of numbers and everything. We'll look at it from a specific kind of bookkeeper point of view. And then we'll look at kind of the process of rolling it out. So client segmentation is a really important part there. There's a pre-accounting tool, sorry, that I want to show you that I think is going to be really useful in this space. And then we'll kind of round it out with a 100-day plan. So really kind of like splitting everything down. So if you do have a lot of clients affected by this, we've got a kind of foolproof plan for you to kind of follow. So making tax digital, the essentials. Before we get into that, we'll have a little poll. So just to kind of get a pulse check. So what do you know about MTD for income tax? And we got three outcomes here, or three answers. So a lot, a little, or MTD, what is that? And we'll leave that up for sort of, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds, give everyone a chance to pop an answer in. And then when we close it, it'll tell us the percentages. So we'll get a good pulse check on the attendees today and what we're covering. There we go. So it's good that nobody put what is MTD at the bottom there. Right, so 75% of you know a little bit about it, and 25% are know quite a lot about it. So hopefully, based on that, today's session will be quite useful for the majority of you. And there might be some bits in there for the 25% that they can refresh on. Oh. So making tax digital, who's going to be affected? So it's going to be a big number. It's 2.75 million small businesses affected. Now, if you remember MTD for VAT, I'm confident that was around 1.4 when we went through that process. So it is going to be quite a big step up from that. Now, of course, it is rolled out over a few years, so that will help. But yeah, in terms of the breakdown, so majority of it's your sole traders coming in at just shy of 2 million. And then we've got landlords and a sort of combination of sole traders and landlords as well. So a big number, really, and something we should definitely be sort of planning, getting ahead of and planning for. So in terms of the timeline, what we know so far, so we've had quite a few confirmations recently. So we know, so we're in the beta phase now, we know that. We know the first year, the threshold income or combined income is going to be 50,000. And then the following year it's dropping to 30, so more will be affected then. And then we've had the confirmation recently as well that 2028 is going to be 20,000. So that's when the majority of all the clients affected by this will then be on at that point. Now we know this slide needs updating actually. So we know that partnerships are going to be excluded, that's handy. And then we believe that MTD for corporation tax is to be decided, and is it by the end? Oh no, so it was by the end of this Parliament that it was going to be the 20,000, but they've confirmed now that it's 2028. So there's the kind of headline dates for you. Now, the requirements sort of simply put, so we'll need to obviously sign up for MTD, our clients will, and as agents, we'll need to sign up for it. Of course, the whole idea behind this is it's maintaining digital records, right? Making tax digital. So we're going to have to start using ledger software or data capture tools or whatever it is. We're going to have to use a piece of software to start digitally recording all of our information. And then that is going to be submitted quarterly now instead of yearly, right? So the big shift is moving from once a year to quarterly updates. The tax return remains the same, actually. So the actual tax return and the sort of final submission dates and all that kind of stuff, that's not really changing. It's just the periodical updates throughout the year that are changing. And we've got an example here that I'm going to go through. So this kind of breaks down an example taxpayer. Now we've gone here with the example of it. So they've got two sole trader incomes, two self-employments. They've got some UK property income, which we know is in scope, and they've got some foreign property income as well. So we know that's in scope as well. So throughout the year, we'll have to maintain a ledger for each of these, and then obviously track all your information within it, and then do your update quarterly. Now the quarters are going to land 1, 2, 3, 4 at the top here, and your due dates are 7th of August, 7th of November, so on and so forth. So you'll be able to, in Sage, for example, we're going to allow you to do a self-employed income from each individual or Sage individual license. And then we're going to partner with Hammock for the property. And actually Hammock allows you to do multiple properties in the same platform. And you'll be able to submit from there. Now, of course, you're submitting from potentially four different sources here, right? But that's okay. As you'll see at the end here, it all kind of gets knitted together at HMRC's end. So you do your updates. You can then also do any kind of allowances or adjustments. By the way, it's worth noting that each update is cumulative. So once you submit quarter one, if there are any omissions or mistakes or anything like that within it, when you just change those and update them in your ledger, and when you do submission two, it's the cumulative figures. So those adjustments will be submitted in the second quarter, and then the third quarter that's cumulative as well, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so then you can do all your adjustments that you need to, and you do your digital tax return as you always have on the 31st of January. And that can really be just a click of a button. If all the record keeping has been done and all the adjustments and everything are done sort of quarterly, it could really be just a case of triple checking if you really need to, and then hitting a button to submit that. Digital records, right? So what do these look like? So from HMRC, the guidance on a digital record is what we've got here. So for each income or expense, we're looking at the amount. the date, and then the tax category, of course, defined by HMRC, that it falls into. So that is what we need. That's the different data points that we need for it to be a digital record. And then what are we sending in quarterly? So summarized unadjusted income and expenses. So you don't actually have to do any like depreciation and things like that. None of the sort of technical stuff. It's just purely the unadjusted income and expenditure that we need to file for, and then those adjustments can come later. They need to obviously fall in the right tax category, and you can put your disallowables through as well. So you don't have to do all the sort of accounting adjustments. It's purely just the totals that we want to submit, as long as they've got the three data points on the left here as well. Pardon me. And then thinking of digital linking. So this is the digital link, which is how they're defining making tax digital. So it needs to be an automated transfer from within software. So once it's in the ledger, once the data is in the ledger, it has to be digitally connected to its next source or HMRC, right? So it's through the HMRC portal, it's through APIs, those kind of ideas. So anything that allows a system to speak to another system digitally is a digital link. What is not um, what is not okay is manually inputting, manually retyping, copy and pasting, things like that. So it does need to be almost like formulaic in its transition. It can't have human interaction. You can click go to send it, but you can't actually change the data, if that makes sense. Now this will only be specific to the data that's falling under the scope of MTD, sorry. And spreadsheets need to be digitally. Yes, so spreadsheets are going to be allowed, but you'll need to use bridging software. So that digital link will come from the spreadsheet to the submission or to the ledger. So there will be bridging software there. So that'll have to fit. And there's no soft landing with MTD as well. So just be aware of that. And then, oh yes, so we've got easements. So there are some things that they've sort of allowed us to delay or sort of provide less information for. So partnerships was in there, but that's now been completely de-scoped. So jointly owned properties, obviously that's can be a bit of a mess when it's, like 60-40 or whatever. It can be different percentages, right? So they're allowing you to just cumulatively total that all together without any kind of additional calculations or separating out, which is nice and handy. You can then do that at the end of the year rather than having to calculate that every quarter. There's going to be easements for 3-line accounts, so people that are just submitting their income, expenditure, and their tax. And then retail sales. So retail sales has got the easement where they don't have to put through every single transaction. That would be very difficult, and so they're allowing you to do a day's gross taking. So you can summarize a whole day's worth of data and put that in as your MTD rather than every individual transaction. Sorry. Okay, so we covered off some of the legislation and the numbers and the kind of parameters of MTD. Now let's look at what that kind of means for the bookkeeping community. So we're talking about making tax digital, but really it's about making tax data, I suppose. And we've got a quote here from Natasha. So a profound realization about bookkeeping is that ultimately we're a kind of highly knowledgeable and specialized data processor. And so this whole turning it into data, it's receiving and collecting data, finding missing data, all this is what bookkeepers are doing day in, day out anyway. So it begs the question, there is going to be that digital handshake where you're submitting that stuff quarterly, but is anything really changing from the bookkeeper's point of view? Maybe just the mandation that it has to be submitted quarterly, but I think best practice is that it's kind of up to date anyway, right? And then a quote here from Amy. So she said, really, it should be called making bookkeeping mandatory, which is kind of what I'm alluding to there. Like good bookkeeping and timely bookkeeping is already ahead of making tax digital. Really, it's just HMRC catching up. Now, if we look at sort of the difference between accountants and bookkeepers for MTD, so just some kind of uh, just sort of summarizing a little bit here. So client touch points typically on the bookkeeper side, we'll go through these first. So client touch points are typically a lot closer, a lot more frequent. It's right at the coalface or the grassroots. It's preparing information for the accounts, the tax returns, maybe even PAYE. Um, and we're seeing a lot of sole traders and landlords in that space. It's potentially higher volume and lower fees. And we do see a lot of sole practitioners in this space. Now that is a generalization. And then if we go to accountants, typically that touch point is a lot less frequent, so maybe yearly. It's more compliance led, right? So we've got CIS in there. Other kind of reporting that needs to go through to HMRC, adjustments and all that kind of stuff. There'll be multi-entities, um, more complex work. So I suppose they're using their qualifications for depreciation and fixed assets and all that kind of stuff and revenue deferred and things like that. All the things that they need to do at the end of year. And typically accountants, they're not, I mean, there are a lot of one-man bands, but I think typically we sort of see they are partnerships. A lot of them are set up as partnerships, so there may be multi-entity or multi kind of offices as well. Pardon me. So MTD, notes for bookkeepers, so things to kind of be aware of. So client communications. So what do we need to do for MTD? So preparing yourself for MTD, kind of have some of these questions in mind is what we're recommending. So if a client comes to you and says, what do I need to do for MTD? If you are quite happy and confident to answer that question, then you're probably in a really good space. If you're not, then uh, you need to brush up on that. So today will hopefully help and just getting yourself in that position is where you want to be really. Where does MTD fit? So different sectors and things like that. So obviously understanding about landlords, as we know, like joint ownership or I've got easements and stuff like that. So just knowing some of the specifics. Um, and then there's other bits as well, like qualifying care income and people without any NI numbers and taxpayers with power of attorney. So there's a couple of things, quite detailed things there. So just being aware of those is going to be really helpful. So digital, this is quite a good saying actually. So digitizing data at source is no longer just a nice to have. And I think that that's probably right. It's always been a nice to have, but now of course it's mandated. So making sure that all the records are captured, digitized quarterly is not no longer a nice to have. It is actually um, mandated. Um, will clients be within the scope by the deadline? So of course, the first scope is 50,000. That's April 26th, as it says on the slide. And then it goes 30, and then it goes 20. But anyone falling into it will be on self-assessment for their first year, and then that will define um, their turnover, and the number there will then define if they are in scope or out of scope of MTD. Now, when people go into scope, they are in regardless of whether their turnover drops for 3 years before they come out. So just to be aware of that is to stop constantly coming in and out like peaks and troughs. They've made it through. Once you're in for 3 years, and then you can come out kind of idea if your turnover drops. So that just smooths that out a little bit. And then a good thing to kind of get ahead of is just creating the agent services account. So we did a roadshow recently about MTD, and Chris Downing was talking, and he was letting us know That actually in the agent services, when you're putting your clients into there, it is going to be quite a manual process of checking or typing in each one. So get ahead of that and make sure that you're kind of chipping away at that each day or each week so that you've got a bit of momentum there and it doesn't become like a big task that you have to kind of rush through at the end and it's very stressy. Has that slide changed? Yes, it has. It just had the same title. So MTD for income tax. So more things to think about. So quarterly reporting for clients. So it's not the full tax return, it's just quarterly reporting. Remember that. It's combined income, so it's their sole trade and property income if they have any, and any joint properties, that kind of idea. So making sure that you're making capturing every kind of source of income. Thinking a little bit about the shift from annual to quarterly, it is going to mean more work. So is there a conversation to be had there about increasing the fees? Of course, there's more work needs to be done, but there's more value that, pardon me, can be delivered. They're going to have insights and real-time tax liability information at their fingertips, pardon me, which they didn't have before, right? So a conversation to have and communicate. So communicate early is a big thing, little and often as well. Pardon me. Maintaining a fully digital journey with account with the to the accountant. So that's that digital link piece that I was kind of talking about before. Once it's in the ledger, it does have to be transferred digitally anywhere that it's going. So you've got your bridging software options or APIs, or just access to the ledger is a big one, of course. I'm thinking about the growth opportunities, so that we've kind of pulled out two here. So with quarterly reporting, is there going to be like new clients in this space? So of course there'll be clients that have never sort of kept digital records before falling into scope and suddenly having to. And I think also there'll be firms, there's some firms that I'm speaking to already, some are saying, well, we're going to double down on MTD and really like nail our processes because we think there's going to be a lot of opportunity and clients there. And then other firms that I'm speaking to are saying, actually, this is a really big headache for us. We might just not deal with these clients and kind of let them exit. So there could be some new clients coming out onto the market and new clients falling into scope. So there is opportunity there if you really nail your processes to kind of grab some of those clients if that's something that you want to do. And another opportunity that we've thought of is subcontracting with accountants. So have those conversations now, right? Try and set up those relationships. It might be similar to the one before where they're getting rid of clients. They may not have to. It could be something that you could partner with them to keep them within that kind of under the brand, for example. Now, client segmentation. So this is there is a bit. I'm going to talk about client segmentation here, but I'm also going to talk about it in the 100-day plan. This one's slightly different because this is just we're just focusing on two pathways here. So maintaining a ledger or hands off, or how we describe them internally, is do it for me and do it with me clients. So the do it with me's are the ones that are willing to maintain a ledger, right? So they're quite happy to use software, whether that's data capture or whether it's a ledger. So they're maybe doing their own invoicing, capturing their receipts, that kind of stuff. They're quite happy to engage and do bits of the work with you. And then there's the more hands-off clients. So we're calling these the do it for me's. So they come to you and they say, we want you to do everything. So they possibly are behaving that way already. They may just drop off like a bag of receipts or something like this yearly. Of course, they'll be mandated to have to do that quarterly, but they might not want to change their behavior. So that then falls on us as an industry to gather those records and turn them around quickly and get them digitized in that quarter. So it could actually be a bit of a spike in busyness in trying to get that turned around. So how does that kind of look? So maintaining your ledgers, that's nice and easy. We know the big players in the market there. A lot of firms have a real mix nowadays. think gone are the days where firms were just one ledger. I mean, they still exist, of course, and that has its benefits and its pros and cons. But all the big players are there. The hands-off clients, what are we going to do with them? And I've got a poll to ask. So just wanted to get your kind of feelings from the people on the webinar today. Can a client be compliant with MTD for income tax if there's no ledger, no digital ledger in place? So your options here, sorry, are yes, no, and not sure. 1, 2, and 3. Again, we'll leave this up for a couple of seconds, maybe 10, 15 seconds, let everyone get a chance to answer. And the results. So, can a client be compliant if they don't have a ledger? 19% have said yes, 13 are unsure, and 68% have said no. Now, the answer is actually yes. Can a client be compliant with MTD with no ledger? So the answer is yes. Yes, sorry. Confused myself a little bit there. So this is to do with the digital link. So actually they can not be on software, which is these do it for me's that we're talking about, which is why we asked the question. So they can just maintain manual records as they always have, but they have to be digitized before they're submitted. And that can be done through bridging software, which is why it doesn't have to be a ledger, or they don't have to be on it. So it's kind of, I guess, kind of splitting hairs because you're probably putting them on bridging software or a ledger at your end, but they don't technically have to be on it to be compliant. Oh, last time we did a poll as well. There we go. Which is kind of, I'm taking a long run up here to our pre-accounting secret solution. So for those of you that don't know, AutoEntry works very similar to any kind of data capture tool. So I don't want to labor this point too hard because they have been around a long time and I believe that you probably all understand them very well, maybe even better than me. So you've got your documents and they can come in many different forms, whether that's paper, email, bank statements, printed out receipts, all that kind of stuff. And you can capture it. You can forward emails, you could scan documents, you can snap pictures. So you're capturing all this information. It feeds into AutoEntry, which is full of machine learning and AI capabilities, and that picks out all the important information. So, tax codes, amount, date, supplier, all this kind of stuff. Organizes it for you, and then pushes it into your ledger solution. And it goes into all the major players in the market, as you would expect. So MTD for clients using accounting software, they'll have hopefully open banking. So they'll get a bank feed, they'll push that into their ledger. They'll capture anything else that they need to capture through AutoEntry. In AutoEntry, that will automatically integrate with their accounting solution so they can do any adjustments, things like that they need to do in their ledger. And in that ledger, that software will have MTD capability built into it. Anything that doesn't will be missing the mark. So you can kind of just assume that everyone's going to build an MTD solution because otherwise they're going to miss the boat. And so you can file from that. So that's typically what that looks like. So information in, organized and read through AutoEntry and then pushed into your ledger solution. Now, how does it look for those not using a ledger? And this is where we're bringing in accounts prep. So it's the same flow, but instead of going into a ledger at the end, you go into accounts prep, which is our kind of silver bullet for this space. So how it works is you can gather all your bank statements. So AutoEntry is famous for being very good at reading bank statements. So you push those into AutoEntry, it reads those and extracts that information. And then what you're able to do is instead of pushing through to a ledger product, it pushes through to this bolt-on called accounts prep. Now, accounts prep, I think, is brilliant. It's an ability. So once you've got that bank statement in, really simply, there's a video I'll show you actually that goes into more detail. But simply put, what it allows you to do is have all the transactional information in a list, and you can grab or tick as many as you want and code them up. So you can really quickly code up and reconcile your bank statements, get everything in the right categories really quickly. And that's the key, right? It's about speed and efficiency. So we're talking about those manual records being turned around in a quarter. So you want to be able to do it really quickly and efficiently, right? And you also want to be doing it at a good price point, because we know that these MTD clients, we need to be efficient with them, but also they're price sensitive. And that's why we think accounts prep's brilliant. So we brought it out of retirement. Those of you that have used AutoEntry for a few years will probably remember the name. So yes, accounts prep allows you to quickly code up everything and get to that trial balance really quickly, so it's efficient. And then the price point is brilliant because it's a £50 bolt-on, and that's a monthly fee, but that's for unlimited clients. So once you purchase that, you've got it as £50 a month, and you can put as many clients as you want through it. So it becomes really scalable and really sort of cost effective. So that's why we think it's going to be a silver bullet in this space. Now I've got a video to show you that'll show you in a bit more detail the kind of inner workings of accounts prep.
Before importing bank statement data, take a moment to review the chart of accounts selected during the initial setup. This is where you can tailor the accounts to your needs by adding, editing, or deleting accounts as necessary. You can also import additional accounts if needed and set up default tax codes, so when you apply a nominal code to a transaction, the system automatically assigns the appropriate tax code for you. Next, head to Settings, where you can choose the default accounts used by Accounts Prep for automatic system postings. Additionally, you can manage and add tax codes, as well as set up additional analysis tags for transactions. Lastly, review the bank accounts sections to check all bank accounts. Add, delete, or rename them to suit the company's needs. For opening balances, we provide templates you can download, fill in, and import back into Accounts Prep for accurate reporting and compliance. Go to the Banks tab and select Bank Statements. Pick the relevant bank account, then click Add Bank Statement Data. You can import data in 3 ways. Use AutoEntry Statement Capture to import previously extracted bank statements stored in AutoEntry. Import data using a CSV file, or enter the data manually on screen. In this example, we'll use AutoEntry Statement Capture. Choose the statement you'd like to extract from the drop-down list, choose the date range required, and the data will be ready for processing. Once your data is imported, the transactions will appear in the Unposted tab. Accounts Prep automatically flags potential duplicates, allowing you to review and delete them with ease. You can sort the transactions by clicking on column headers, tailoring the view to your needs. To categorize transactions, use the checkboxes to select relevant entries. Double-click on the account column and choose the appropriate account from a drop-down menu. Apply tax rates, if needed, to ensure compliance. With Accounts Prep, you can search for specific transactions, enabling bulk processing and saving time on large statements. If you are unsure what account to assign a transaction to, simply flag it for other colleagues to pick up. Accounts Prep simplifies the process of managing complex transactions. Easily document transfers between bank accounts. For example, if you're recording a credit card payment, just click the Transfer button and select the relevant account. Accounts Prep will automatically search for a matching transaction. If no match is found, you can still proceed with the transfer, ensuring everything is properly tracked, even without a match. For transactions that need to be divided across multiple accounts or tax codes, simply split them for precise reporting. For clients who still rely on checks, Accounts Prep has you covered. Add or import them within the Checks section. Then use the Checks button to start matching them with transactions, simplifying check management and tracking. Accounts Prep automatically finds the match if there's one. Once you're satisfied with the data, click Post to move the transactions from the Unposted tab to the Posted tab. For clients with cash sales or expenses not reflected in bank statements, you can import them through the Cash Sales and Cash Expenses features. This is especially helpful for tax-registered clients needing to report tax accurately. You can also make journal adjustments, especially useful for off-statement data, in 3 different ways. Quick Journal Entry. For fast, simple adjustments, Standard Journal Entry. For more detailed entries and Double Journal Entry. for balancing complex debits and credits. Now that the data is processed, you can generate and export reports. Under Reports, you'll find a variety of exportable reports. Let's start with the Account Details report, which gives a detailed breakdown of activity for each nominal account. You can filter by account, search for specific transactions, and even edit them as needed. It also enables you to review flagged transactions and make any necessary adjustments. Exporting this report to Excel is simple. Just click the arrow to download it. Next, check out the Profit and Loss report, which displays figures for the selected reporting periods. You can compare up to 3 periods, depending on the data available in Accounts Prep. To export this report to Excel, click here. When you're ready to export data for your account's production, go to the Export Data option from the Reports list. Choose the format that matches your account's production software. If your software isn't listed, use the generic format for easy compatibility. Once you're satisfied with your settings, export the data, and it will automatically download to your computer's Downloads folder.
There we go. So that explained it in a lot more detail, but hopefully you can see where this product would fit in that workflow. So it's very much the do-it-for-me's or the less hands-on on clients, and I think it'll be really helpful in driving efficiency in that space. Now, finally, the final point I want to kind of cover off today is your 100-day plan, right? So if MTD's coming, now we do have more than 100 days, luckily, but it's just a round number that we can kind of play with. And this is a plan where I've kind of taken 4 chapters that we're going to cover, and they're just 4 elements that are really important to think about. Now, when coming up with a plan, we typically start with the why, but of course in this scenario, we know the why. It's MTD and it's coming, it's being mandated, so we don't really need to focus on that. Pardon me. There's the what, so that can be different from firm to firm. It'll be different from an individual to individual. It may be just as a minimum, you want to be compliant with MTD. It may be that actually you want to roll this project out and solve a few things in your practice or change a few bits of software or whatever that kind of looks like, right? So the what might differ from firm to firm. So maybe think about that so that you've got your North Star and you know where you're going. And then what I'm going to cover is the how. So like I said, 4 chapters, 25 days each, just simple maths, but you don't need to spend 25 days on each one, and you don't need to do them necessarily in this order. I've just set out the presentation this way so that we cover them all off, but it may be that you do them in a different order from what I've suggested. It may be that you go to one and then back to the other and you kind of jump around a little bit, just making sure that you've got all your bases covered. So we've got segmentation, which I've talked about before. We've got engagement, so engaging your different stakeholders. We've got the actual plan, so putting pen to paper to come up with our plan. And then we've got onboarding, or another way of saying that is just executing on the plan. So with segmentation, this is your practice DNA, right? So it's your client portfolio. It's understanding your current state so that you can then work towards your future states. You've got to understand your clients, who's affected, all that kind of stuff. So it's basically your client list, but with an MTD lens on it. So thinking about just the data sources. So you may have a practice management tool. If you do, great. What kind of information does it have? What fields does it have? Can you filter? Can you export? Stuff like that. How's that tool going to be useful to get the answers you need for MTD? So have a think about that. If you don't have a practice management tool, maybe you've got silos of information in different products. So how are we going to combat that? Is it a case of finding out what we can export from those and compiling it all together in Excel maybe? I don't know what that looks like, but that might be a possible solution, right? So you want like a sort of single source of truth so you kind of know where everything is, and it can kind of be the basis of your foundation for your project plan. The next couple of slides, I'm really just calling out things to think about. So these could possibly be column headers in the spreadsheet, for example. So you want to know like their trading type. Of course, that will affect whether they're in scope or out. You want to know things about like their quarterly approach. So you want to understand how often are they dropping the records off now? Is it already quarterly? Then that's great. Is it yearly? Then that's going to have to change. So that'll aid your communication piece. Or are they dropping it off weekly? In which case, brilliant. Phase threshold, so their turnover or their combined turnover is going to be an important field because that'll help you to understand whether or not they're in phase 1 or phase 2 or phase 3. When we did our roadshows, actually, it was in conjunction with HMRC, and we've been really pushing, trying to get as many people onto the beta. So looking at suitability for the beta program is going to be very important. Essentially, the more clients we push through that portal, the more it'll be stress tested, and we'll find the errors sooner, or HMRC will find errors sooner, things like that, and make it really strong and robust. So the more we test it, the better it will be, essentially. Period alignment is going to be a big one. So if you went through basis period reform, and then the clients are now coterminous with the MTD quarters, then that's absolutely fine. But if they aren't, then it's understanding what that kind of fraction is, what that calculation is going to be to kind of split it and make sure you're submitting the right amount for that MTD quarter, even if their periods don't align with that, the client's periods, that is. Thinking about income sources, so obviously we know this, if it's single or multiple incomes, thinking about have they got rental income? If they do have rental income, what's the kind of complexity of that? So understanding if it's like a holiday let or an HMO, an Airbnb, or shared ownership, all that kind of stuff. Thinking about the quality of the records is going to be another thing as well. So those kind of do it with me's, do it for me's. What's the quality of the records that you're getting? Are they all digital already? Are they some digital, some manual, or is it all manual? It's kind of understanding the quality of the data will really help you to understand the conversations you need to have with clients and the work you're going to have to do to maybe change them or not have to change them in terms of their behavior. Fee structure is going to be a big one, so we did touch on this. So if they're paying yearly, you may want to shift them to paying quarterly for each submission kind of thing. There will be software costs involved now, so it probably makes sense to kind of disperse that on or not, but kind of makes sense to account for it or charge for it in quarterlies or more frequently than yearly. And then some sort of like more like soft skills of the softer side of things. So are these clients quite open-minded to change and quite happy to use technology? Those kind of clients will be great guinea pigs, whereas the ones that are maybe less tech savvy and don't really want to change, they're probably not great guinea pigs, right? So we'll leave them to a later date to kind of move across if that makes sense. So thinking about all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that just gives you an idea of the importance of understanding your current state before you kind of leap into the project. The next thing you want to think about is engagement. So engaging your different stakeholders across the project. Now I've split it into 3. So we've got client engagement. So client engagement here is just be proactive. It's communicate little and often. So try not to fall into the pitfall of I'll wait until I know everything about MTD and I know, pardon me, everything about my solution that I'm going to roll out and everything about my workflows, and then I'll communicate, because at that point it's going to be too late, and they'll be left behind. So you want to kind of bring them along the journey with you. So you can communicate little and often. It can just be simple things like MTD's coming. Once you know their phase threshold, it might be actually you guys are phase 2. Once you've got your solution in place, it may be, oh, we've chosen this solution and this is why, and these are the benefits to you. So you can communicate as you kind of go along the project. I think that's a great way of doing it because it's bite-sized and they can kind of come along on that journey with you. Now, when you're doing that, make sure that you're advocating the benefits of digitization, of course. So HMRC and MTD is kind of the stick, but there is a carrot to this. It's real-time information. It's better decision making. It's seeing that cash flow crash sooner. All these kind of things. So there's a lot of benefits to digitization, even like work-life balance, that kind of stuff. So making sure we're advocating those. pardon me. Yeah, and utilizing any kind of thinking about support and training. So you will have to sort of support and train the clients that are going to do some of this themselves. So thinking about where does that fall into the project? What are we going to train them on? Etc., etc. Now, when we think about, so let's turn the lens internally now, and we'll think about clients. Pardon me. So not clients, sorry, colleagues. So with our colleagues, it's important that we kind of educate them as much as we educate ourselves, right? So we want to be confident on MTD and all the things we need to know about it, but let's make sure our team does as well. Let's remove any anxiety from there so that they can have good client conversations as well. I don't think it's a leap to think that if every client's going from yearly to quarterly, it's a lot more conversations. It may be that more members of the team are having those client conversations now. So we really want them to understand MTD and not be, fearful of talking about it. And we also want them to understand like the client benefits and the practice benefits and all this kind of stuff. So everyone is singing from the same hymn sheet. Everyone knows why we're doing this and the benefits of it. Make sure you got really good feedback loops in there. So these guys are going to be on the coal face, right? The grassroots, whatever you want to call it. So they'll be seeing if software's working or if a process is clunky or if clients are resisting something or if it's just not working. Get that feedback, gather that feedback, and make sure you're kind of quickly flexing and making sure that your project's on like running smoothly. Clearly defined roles within the practice or within your firm is going to be useful. If you're a sole practitioner, it might be clearly defined time, so like protecting time. But if you do have multiple people within the business, then clear roles is going to be really important. And you can use the RACI model if you want to for that. So that's RACI, and that is for every thing that needs to be done within the project, who's responsible, who's accountable, who needs to be consulted, and who just needs to be informed. And then once you know that, you've got a really good idea of everyone's roles and responsibilities for every task within the project. And just nurturing an environment of knowledge sharing, right? So there's no silly questions. If you don't know the answer, just put your hand up, ask it. It's fine. Like we're all going through this, we're all learning something new. So just trying to create like you don't have to suffer in silence kind of environment within your firm. And then technology. So the final stakeholder we've got in here is technology. Now, my big advice here is to be inquisitive and I'm going to say this a few times on this slide, but make your vendors, the software providers, sweat. So be inquisitive, look at all the providers out there and all the tools they have, the features within it, and then marry that to your segmentation exercise. So are you going to need multiple solutions for your varying client base, or can you use one? What does that look like? And you'll be able to understand that by making your vendors, demo the products to you, show you it in action, so you can really see the features and pick the right product for you, your practice, and your clients. Use it as an opportunity as well, maybe not just to solve for MTD, but this ties back to that what that I was talking about before, like what does it look like for you? It may be that you want to do sort of like a full app stack kind of review and look at everything while you're doing this anyway. Might be a good time to do that. And then look to, again, making your vendors and software providers sweat a little bit here. So if you're doing a lot of communication, you're having to do training to your team and training to your clients and all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of content creation, it's a lot of delivery. We certainly at Sage, but obviously the other vendors as well, we're creating a lot of content and we are delivering a lot of webinars and courses and online courses and email templates and all this kind of stuff. We're creating all of that. So leverage it, absolutely use it. Speak to your account managers and see what they can support you with. If you're putting on MTD events, whether that's live or webinar, I'm sure your vendors and your account managers will be more than happy to provide you with swag for those events or slides that you can kind of put your own tone of voice on, that kind of thing. So making sure you're getting as much out of your vendors as you can. And of course, leveraging AI, right? So we can't go through a presentation these days without mentioning AI. So making sure that you're leveraging that. So it's brilliant at looking at large data sets. It's brilliant at generating content. So let it do the heavy lifting on that, and then you can just sense check it, add your tone of voice, that kind of idea. And even look at softwares that are building AI into their processes, and that can support you as well. So have a think about those kind of things too. Pardon me. Plan. What are we doing for time? Right. So the plan, I'm going to break into 3 sections. So thinking about your people, your processes, and your proposition. I'm going to speed up now because we're 9 minutes to go. So with your people, make sure you're empowering your teams with those clear roles, making sure that when you're thinking about the events that you're putting on, can you resource them? How are you going to resource them? When should you hold them in terms of dates? Where should you hold them? Physical, digital, that kind of idea. So thinking about all the people within your business, all those resources, are they trained? Are they confident? Are they happy? Are they supported? All that kind of stuff. And where do they need to be when to be successful? Thinking about your processes. So I would really recommend just document, document, document. So if you document all of your processes, all the steps that you go through, and you have that to hand, that's a really good sort of leave behind, right, for your team, for you. Everyone can follow the same process, and there's a lot of benefits to kind of workflows and standardization. Efficiency's a great one, right? Minimum service level, so everyone's getting the same service. Scalability, ramping up of staff, right? So if you bring in a new staff member, if they've got something to follow and learn, I can guarantee you they'll ramp up quicker than if they were just kind of winging it, essentially. So making sure you're documenting your processes so that you can kind of follow them and make sure everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet. And then with your proposition, once you've done your research and you've had your demos and you know the best solutions for you and your clients and your firm, just kind of pulling that into a proposition. So, this is the solution, this is why, these are the benefits, this is why we're doing it this way, all that kind of stuff. So it's a really easy kind of 5-minute pitch that everyone can do, and clients understand it, the team understands it, and it's really easy to kind of follow. And then onboarding, so taking action really is the last piece here, and we can rattle through this quite quickly. So this is just taking action on the plan, right? So agent services account, that's an easy win, something you can get good momentum with. So maybe start that early. Make sure you're engaging with your clients in the cohorts that the segmentation exercise kind of highlighted to you. Of course, any new clients, you put them on digitally. Please, please, please look out for clients to get onto the beta program, and make sure that you're sort of bite-sized chunks working through the project, but don't be scared to go back and change something. So like I said at the very beginning, you may not do it in the same order as me. You may get feedback that this isn't working, or actually this is really clunky, we could do it a better way. Whatever it is, make sure you're agile enough to kind of iterate and go back to the plan and then execute again, kind of idea. So that's 100-day plan, all kind of covered there. Hopefully that's useful. It's just to give you 4 kind of key areas to think about. Accounts prep. So yeah, final call out for accounts prep. So it's back out of retirement. As I kind of said, this is just, you'll get these slides as a handout so you can refer to this. So you're able to take out your AutoEntry subscription, and it's a bolt-on. Essentially, you just go into settings and purchase it. It's £50 a month, and you can get unlimited clients. So that's there for the handout at the end. And I've got one final poll, and then I'll leave time for questions. So the final poll is really just an ask. So if anyone would like a one-to-one demonstration of AutoEntry or accounts prep or both, then let us know. So AutoEntry, number 1, accounts prep number 2, or if you'd like to look at both or have a conversation about both, then select number 3. We'll capture your answers here and be able to kind of reach out to you and set those up, basically. I'll leave that up for a couple of seconds, but that's me covered. I've got one more slide which just alludes to all the great work that we're doing across Sage as a brand, and we'll answer any questions that we've got. We'll look through the chat and the Q&A box and try and answer off anything in the time that we've got left. Oh, it's done that thing again. There you go. So I'll leave, the last slide is any questions here. So if there are any questions, we'll read them out now. And I'll leave this slide up just so you can see all the great work that we're doing across the brand. But are there any questions?
Thank you, Sean. So lots of people saying thank you for that. I think seeing the 100-day plan,
I can't see the chat.
breaking it down into quite manageable chunks hopefully makes it feel a lot easier about starting that communication with clients, and also changing processes internally as well. So I'm just having a quick look through. So Paul just has a question about jointly owned property. Do we register both parties and then submit the joint income and expenses on both, or is there a facility for sharing that submission?
Good question. So I guess it depends on the software, I suppose. I know in Hammock you can set it up so that it's by the individual. So say you've got 3 people in Hammock and one of them owns a property and 10% of another and 50% of another and so on. It does all link back to that one person and it stacks it all up so you can then do the submission for them. I don't know how it does it in other software, so I think it's kind of software dependent, really. You may be able to use like tracking categories or departments or whatever it kind of looks like within that ledger product to achieve a similar kind of output.
And we've just got Faye just commenting on that one, just saying it depends if the ownership is registered as a partnership or not, just regarding that property question. Moving on to the next one, Peter is asking or saying that I use Sage 50 for my clients. Will this project be compatible with /4 Making Tax Digital for income tax?
Yes, it will be. Yes, we had that announcement internally a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month or 2 ago. There will be MTD compliant submissions for Sage 50. Yes.
Great. So getting the intel fresh from the source here. So Lisa is asking, I have a sole trader client who also rents out a room in her house. Can this be recorded within the same set of accounts as her sole trader records?
Again, that's dependent on the software. So from a Sage point of view, the answer would be no there. So the sole trader income we would suggest putting through Sage Individual, for example, or accounts prep, whatever path you take, but the property income would go through a different filing mechanism. We're partnering with Hammock for that, so it would be separated. And in that example as well, if that person had 2 sole trades, we would maintain 2 ledgers there, so you'd have 2 versions of Sage Individual for that, to cover that. I know that other providers are allowing you to do it all from one, so that's what I mean. So it's kind of dependent on the provider. I think Dext, for example, you can do it all in the one. I think Xero, you can do it in one, but you have to use the tracking category. So it's really software dependent.
So just going back to your 100-day plan, ask the questions of your
Yeah,
provider.
exactly. Yeah, stress test your vendors and make sure you understand how each product's working. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I can just see there are a few questions open, but we are coming to time. So I think if the team are happy, we can take them away, and obviously we can get back with them to the individuals who's asked those questions just outside of this webinar. So yeah, thank you so much. So yeah, if you've got a couple of questions that haven't been answered, we will get back to you. Probably won't be today, but in the next few days, we will get back to you with an answer. Because yeah, your perfect timing means we're ending almost exactly at midday. So thank you so much, Sean. And again, thank you for filling out the poll about having the demos. I think most people have said they are interested in both, which is obviously great news.
Very good. Yeah.
We will be reaching out with the copy of the recording and the slides. And obviously, if you have any questions for the Sage team, you can just reach out. So thank you so much, Sean and Keir. I know you've also been here in the background. So thank you so much to the team. And thank you for everyone joining us.
You're very welcome. Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks so much.